Hello, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec podcast, where I help you create teams worth leading. As always, I'm your host, Aviv Ben-Yosef, advisor and consultant to tech execs worldwide, and today we're going to be talking about time value. I'm reminding you these episodes are recorded in advance because, fingers crossed, we're in Italy having a nice time as you're listening to this. So I'm hoping I'm not missing out on any interesting events happening. Now, let's talk about time value. This is not about how much you value your time and how much people are getting billed by the hour. This is about understanding that a certain amount of work has a different value depending on when you do it. For example, and I'm gonna list out a few examples, all of them unrelated to work, but I just want to paint a picture. I try and back into parking spots so I can just start driving when I'm done with the event and want to move on, because I prefer to spend that time then and not spend it later, often when I'm more tired, when I might be in a rush. The time it has taken me to park correctly before is worth it because I'm saving the time that I hold more dear, the time after the event is done. We, a few weeks ago, took out the pool again to, have the kids have something to do during the summer at home. And the previous summer, a year ago, I spent, an hour making sure that as I was folding everything and putting it into storage, I did it in a way that everything was intact. I put the talc powder where needed to make sure that things won't stick to one another. I had all the parts together. I had the instructions there and I had them scanned on my phone so I could just, type into notes, pool, and the instructions would come out and everything. And I also had reminders reminding me to buy different things you need to operate the pool regularly, like chlorine, etc. And that means that when it was time to do it, we were just so surprised. It took us less than an hour to do everything, even though it wasn't a new pool. It was a pool that was used, had stood in storage for a year, and we just put it up so fast. We were just amazed. This again was my time spent back then and rewarding me right now. And sometimes you have to realize how you can decide to plan ahead and make your life easier in the future and making future you be so much happier because you put in the effort to plan ahead. And again, no plan is perfect and not everything needs to be super planned, but sometimes this really pays off. So for example, perhaps you can tell right now that if things continue according to plan, or you saw what in the executive team you're talking about when it comes to the types of clients you want to sign in the next 6 to 12 months. Right now, it might not matter, but you see that scaling some parts of your system will be needed in 12 months. And you know that it's going to be quite an effort. Why wait till then? Maybe right now you can already talk to your senior staff and start talking to them about the sort of scaling improvements you're going to have to make in the next 12 months. So whatever decisions they're already making, as they're working on other things unrelated, supposedly, in the next 6 months, they're already making some decisions that will make you better equipped. So at least you're not making the problem worse before you're going to start to solve it. And then maybe 6 months before, you're going to start working on some scaling things actively, not just as you're making some decisions, in order to be at a better position when you actually are at the position where the company wants to sign one of these bigger companies, bigger clients that actually require a scaling improvement. This is time value, where you're understanding that when you're there at the point where you want to sign that client, being able to do it as fast as possible is worth a lot usually for startups. But if you will make a bunch of tiny decisions along the way a year before to start making sure that you're at a better position when you reach that point later, that time value is so different and usually better invested back then. And of course, we have to balance everything. If you do it too much, you're going to be over engineering your system. I get that. But too often I see leaders just marking everything as over-engineering, as, no, we're agile, we don't have documentation, we don't write anything, we don't think about anything, everything is waterfall. No. Sit down and think for a bit. This is actually what leadership is about. You're not waterfall if you think about where you want to get, how you want to get there. Make sure that at least some of the decisions along the way are being done having the right context in mind, because maybe the change itself is so small that it's not over engineering. You just need to be aware of another thing to take into account. And without thinking about it, you're not going to be aware of it. Your people are not going to be aware of it. The architects are not going to make that decision that way because they didn't see that thing coming. So I want you to start thinking about the time value. What can you change right now to have things be so much better in the future? I shared a story a few months ago about a leader who told me he realized that in their big corporation, he will get major budget decisions 6 months into the future. And those could be the entire difference between having a leading organization or organization in decline. Yet he didn't act right now in order to start making things correct, so that when the executive leadership sit down and decide, they see all the potential in his organization. He was just waiting till, like, in his mind, like 2 weeks before to start talking to people. I'm like, no, the time value of doing it that late is just insane. Do it right now. Right now, you can start moving things before you're in a rush, before every mistake is irrecoverable. Start doing things right now, and you're going to see the difference. And the same applies to you. Start thinking about the time value of your decisions, where you can invest right now. It's going to pay off tremendously in the future. Yeah, you might not make all your calls right. You might be making some wrong decisions, but it's better than just randomly going wherever the flow takes you. That's not leadership. All right? Thank you. Again, check out the show notes if you want to get my newsletter every week. Even right now, when I'm in Italy, you still should be getting those. And I'll see you here next week, and I should be back by then. So maybe I'll have some interesting stories. Ciao.